So welcome everybody, good morning, and welcome to our September AMA Iowa Luncheon. I am Angela Tenclay, the president this year of the chapter. It's great to see so many people here. It's great to see so many new faces. I love that every time I come to a luncheon, I see new people, and I also see a lot of old people that just are like die-hard AMA lovers like me, which is really great that it's fun to see new companies and new agencies, new sole business owners get involved and come to our luncheon. So we're really excited that you're here today and excited for our luncheon presentation. So as always, I would be remiss if I didn't give a big shout out to our board of directors. As everybody here probably knows, volunteering takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time, and being on a board really takes a lot of time. We pride ourselves on truly being a working board. We've been honored for that. We were honored last year as the third most influential board with the business record, which was pretty exciting. And if you haven't voted already, please vote for us again, as we're up for it again this year. So I just want to thank all the board members. If you're here today, please stand up quickly. Thank you for all the work that you do on our board. If you have questions about AMA, please see any of these people in the room. So thank you to each one of you. And if you ever have interest in being on the AMA board, a great way to get started is by volunteering with us. And Mary Honeyman, who works at the Integer Group, is our director of volunteers. I know she's not here today because she had a client meeting that she needed to attend over lunch, but if you want to volunteer, let me know, let any of the board members know, and we'll get you involved and then groom you into being one of the best board members ever. Today, I also wanted to share our theme for the year is Engage with AMA Iowa. If you've been to luncheons since August, you would have heard our theme. If you haven't, we really encourage you to do just this by engaging. A great example for that is volunteering. Another great example is meeting new people that you come to a luncheon with, emailing them, going to coffee together, networking, really taking your experience to the next level with us versus just coming to a luncheon and then leaving and not doing anything with it. We really want to see you implement new things with AMA, bring new ideas to us so that we can implement them because we're really all about engagement. And your experience is going to be a lot better with us as an organization if you're willing to engage back. As always, we always want to welcome our new members that have now become a member with AMA Iowa. Do we have any new members here today that are here for the first time? All right, we do. We have two people here that are new members, so welcome. Thanks for joining AMA Iowa, and also thanks for coming to our luncheon. Hopefully you guys feel welcome today and get to meet some new people. If you have questions about membership team, can you raise your hand? I know we have a couple in the room. We have Olivia back there, and we have Sadie over there. So if you have any questions on membership, what that looks like, the benefit and the values, please feel free to ask them, and they'll be happy to answer any questions you have. We, as always, have a lot of upcoming events. I'm really excited that this month we have our agency crawl, and I believe it's our 5th annual agency crawl, which is wonderful that we've been doing it for that many years. I'm personally excited because one of the stops on the crawl is Happy Medium, where I work, and then Trilix is also going to be the other stop where we also have a board member, Ashley Danielson, who's standing up over here, works. I really encourage you to come out. It's a great way to network. There's a lot of students that come. There's people from the agency side, people from the client corporate side, people from nonprofit. It's just a really fun atmosphere to kind of kick back and relax and get to know some new people and see the inside of a space of some agencies and what we do on a daily basis if you've never worked on the agency side before. So I really encourage you to come out. It's an after-hours event. And we would absolutely love to see you there. And then also our other events are always on our website, amaiowa.com, if you need to know what's coming up next for your calendar. As always, we'd love for you to tweet with us, especially today since we have Nick here and we're talking about the social space. Make sure you're tweeting with us. Our hashtag is AMA Iowa and our handle is the same. And then Nick's Twitter handle is also up here as well. All right, so today for our giveaways, we are going to do some grab bag giveaways. I think we're going to draw 6 names. So that means when you're called, you get to go to the back to our lovely Director of Sponsorships, Emily Nichols, and get to pick out a prize. So get excited. So we're going to draw the first one. And if I don't draw your name, don't be upset with me. All right, the first one is Sadie Hauer. I think it's the curved corners on your business card, and it felt kind of soft in my hands. Yep. It's all about the business card. All right, who's going to be next? Brent Eisenberger. So apparently you can't take pictures of me anymore. Go claim your prize. All right, and the next one is Claire Celsi. I think the worn business card look in the corner is what you got. So good job, everybody, a little tip there. Daycare in the bottom. The next one is an essay person, Lisa Bowden. You're next. No, that's 4. 2 more. Our next person is Katie Schutzel, I'm sorry. Totally messed that up. I'm sorry. I tried to do the sounding out in my head, and it clearly did not work very well. All right, and the last person is Katie Pope, Strategic America. And I also wanted to mention that our speaker is also going to be doing a giveaway at the end of his presentation, so make sure that you stick around for that as well, because it's going to be wonderful. I also want to give, obviously, a shout out to our annual Platinum sponsors. Our sponsors are so wonderful. We're so grateful to work with them. They're great partners for our business, and I really encourage you to partner with them as well when you're looking for services for your own company. I wanted to mention a big thanks to Kelly Moore Consulting, Global Reach, Lessing Flynn, Huffman Creative, On Point Strategies, and Skyline, Iowa, Nebraska, as well as Color FX. So thank you to each one of the sponsors for all you do for AMA Iowa. And also a big thank you to our annual sponsors. As you all know, a lot of the things we do are not possible if we didn't have great partners to sponsor with us and really provide an incredible experience for AMA Iowa. So again, when you're looking at partnering with people or looking for services, please consider these people. They come highly recommended from all of us on the board, and I guarantee that you'll love working with them. And next, I want to introduce Sarah Barthol, who's our VP of Programs, and she's going to come up and introduce our speaker for today.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm excited to introduce our speaker for today's luncheon. Nick Westergaard is a strategist, speaker, author, and educator. As Chief Brand Strategist at Brand Driven Digital, he works with organizations of all shapes and sizes to build broader brands online through social media and digital marketing. Since 2005, Nick has blogged about marketing, posting fresh brand-driven insights each week. He has written for Marketing Proofs, 12 Most, and The Gazette, where he is a regular columnist. His thoughts on social media and marketing have been featured in news sources such as U.S. News and World Report, Entrepreneur Magazine, Mashable, American Express Open Forum, and the Des Moines Register. He's also the author of eBooks Google Plus 101, and Instagram for Brands, and co-host of the World Talk Show podcast. Nick is a sought-after speaker on branding and social media at conferences and workshops around the world. He also teaches marketing at the University of Iowa, where he sits on the professional advisory board for the School of Journalism and Mass Communication, and also the advisory council of the Marketing Institute at the Tippie College of Business. Please join me in welcoming Nick.
Thank you, Sarah. Awesome. Thank you so much. Everybody can hear me okay? Ish, mostly. Well, in case you can't tell from the fact that I'm standing here wearing red pants, I am a bit of a visual person, so I'm very excited to talk a bit about social media's visual revolution. Even though one thing with the red pants that I'd not thought of until right before getting on stage is that I think I could also be mistaken for a Marriott employee. So I think the nearest restrooms are out there, and see your servers about anything food related. But on to the visual stuff. I'm excited to talk about it because I am a visual person, as I like to say when it comes to social media. To know me is to follow me on Instagram. And most of the important things to know about me you can kind of find through me on Instagram. You can see, I believe, most of my 5 kids somewhere in there. The home office that I hide in from the aforementioned 5 kids, my classroom at the University of Iowa, the workshops that we put on, a little bit of Leinenkugel's Summer Shandy, and more. But again, all of this stuff is exciting to me. That is my favorite social network. And take a step back and think about why that's a social network that we all like so much. And I kept thinking about this phrase that we see all the time. That being, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And it's one of those that we see and we kind of nod along, yes, that's an important thing. But I kind of wanted to unpack that as a means of introducing what we're talking about and say, well, what does that really mean? Why? So I did some research and actually discovered the first appearance is in this ad for Royal Baking Powder, where they note an ancient Chinese proverb that one picture is worth 10,000 words. Fun bit of trivia, it is neither particularly ancient, Chinese, nor a proverb. It was written by advertising copywriter Fred R. Barnard. So I thought that as a marketing group, we would all appreciate that this idea of the importance of pictures has long been a tool that marketers have embraced. But what do we really mean when we talk about the visual stuff? Do we just mean having a good logo, having pretty pictures that go with our brands? Of course we mean that, but we mean many other things as well. And all of these rich images come together, and we're presented with this unique opportunity because of all of these social networks today, many of which are increasingly visual. So to look at this, I want to take a look back, a bit of a timeline, on a visual history of social media. So those of us that have seen the movie The Social Network, aside from the jaded love story that supposedly caused the starting of Facebook, or the Facebook, most of us know that Facebook was started on a Harvard campus and replaced these lowercase f Facebook things that were actual physical books that had people's pictures in them that was a means for connecting faces with names. So they took that utility online so that people could get to know everyone. Now, of course, it's escalated, grown to be a huge billion-plus strong network, but it's an important coda on that to note that even today, there are still 350 million photos uploaded to Facebook every day. And of course, after Facebook, we saw Twitter, LinkedIn, all of these other social networks emerging. But it wasn't until 2011 that things started getting really visual. And that's when we saw the arrival of search giant Google enter the social fray with the Google Plus social network that was defined, and is still today, by lots of rich white space with big images, bigger avatars, bigger photos, bigger videos. You know, the joke being that Google Plus looks like Facebook would look if Google would have designed it. But this sparked a real visual trend over the course of 2011. And as we all know, with our Iowa connection, that's around the time when Pinterest is coming out of beta and takes this not-so-new concept of social bookmarking and makes it very visual as well. And of course, we close out 2011 with Instagram being named the App Store's App of the Year. So 2012, all of these social stalwarts start to adapt. Facebook unleashes its biggest redesign ever, the timeline update, where they added many bigger images, bigger photos, bigger videos. They took this little tiled cover image concept that Google Plus started and created these enormous canvases that we can paint on with cover photos. And of course, adding the signature feature, the timeline itself. Twitter, which had previously started in a much more Wild West type context, where it was just these quick 140 character updates, and you could download any app. And it had a bunch of noisy ads and different weird backgrounds that you could customize in the apps. But that's when they started closing off and reining in that API a little bit more and making their look even more uniform, adding their own version of cover photos called header photos. And you look at Twitter today, and you really have to look pretty closely to tell the difference between this Best Buy Twitter profile and Best Buy Facebook brand page. So really seeing kind of the convergence of the looks between those two. Even LinkedIn took their LinkedIn Today newsfeed feature, which delivered relevant articles based on your occupation, your industry, and all of a sudden made this much more visual instead of just a boring old newsfeed. And if all of this wasn't enough, they started acquiring further visual cred as well. We saw Facebook in April of 2012 pay the pre-WhatsApp sticker shock price of $1 billion for Instagram. A little more quietly, a month later, LinkedIn, in what I think of as a parallel move when you look at Facebook acquiring Instagram, LinkedIn acquiring SlideShare, the visuals that all of those business professionals on LinkedIn are most sharing are slide decks like this. They acquire that. And of course, that fall, Twitter acquires a small startup with a then unreleased app called Vine. All of this bringing us to today, when we see that there are 1.2 billion likes that take place on Instagram each day. It's the fastest growing social network, this simple little visual network. We see that there's 46% more engagement on Facebook after launching Timeline. We see that there's 40% of social e-commerce coming from Pinterest, so driving real dollars behind all of this. And we see that images are the most popular content shared on Twitter, even ahead of videos and links. And we see that 44% of us are more likely to engage with brands that share photos and videos. And as we look at which networks we're using more and more, we see year on year, Vine use up 639%, Instagram use up 350%, Flickr, not necessarily a new social network, up 254%, but being very visually based. And of course, we see, with very few year-on-year statistics to look at, Snapchat. We see 50% of US teens embracing this platform. It's amazing. I mean, in my UI class, I do a quick show of hands on who's using what, and 90% are using Snapchat. More on that in a bit. So after unloading all of these stats, this visual history, what's happening today, I think a bigger question for all of us is what it really means. Well, the fact of the matter is it means that we're sharing more visual content. It means that what we're sharing is more impacted by what I call, with a little Iowa nod, the Pinterestification of the social web. And we see that even our blog content that we're working to create requires these huge images being impacted by these visuals. You know, we used to, when we started blogging, we thought about it as the online version of publishing, where we thought of things in terms of the newspaper context of things going below the fold. And why would you want something that would push your content below the fold or online below the scroll? And I was frankly one of those that was baffled by why now it's all the way down there. But I think that's what the big aha moment is that that's not pushing the content down. These monstrous images on sites like Mashable and TechCrunch. These massive images are a part of the content. They are a necessary part of the content, as you can see in the photo inlay there, of this content getting shared on other social networks like Facebook, where these big images matter, where your engaging headline and big image essentially function as a little miniature ad to stand out in the tough competition for our online audience's attention. And we also see that there are more visual content tools in terms of blogs that are based entirely on images, tools like Tumblr, tools like Storify, even our data in terms of infographics. We're getting more visual with the data, giving people more information to snack on. This being kind of the cheese that we're putting over the broccoli that is our data. Even things like an annual report are amazing visual content opportunities. Warby Parker, innovative eyeglasses maker, for the past 4 years has put together an interactive, infographic-driven microsite that outlines their achievements for the year. If you think about the type of stuff in an annual report, it's great summaries of what we're doing on behalf of our brands, how many people we've reached, what we've done, what we've sold, and most of the time we just bury that as a PDF somewhere. whereas they have made that an actual public-facing visual content opportunity. Even NPR, where you think about their primary output being audio, is taking to networks like Instagram and Pinterest with these scrappy social images that provide quick sound bites based on the longer form content. Even Twitter, which we initially thought of as that's just text-based, we're seeing more videos, more images showing up in the actual Twitter feed. So all of our content is more visual than ever before. The concern, of course, is the fact that, like anything online, anything that's a quick trend, even something like the Ice Bucket Challenge, all of a sudden, you've got the haters on board right away. And everybody has a problem with all of this visual stuff. And you see people saying that when you think about the first version of the web, where we have all of these links that we're trying to build, well, there's no links out of Instagram. You can't do anything. It's the junk web, as some people have said. There's others that have said it's one-dimensional. It's just a picture. You can't do much. Another, more realistic concern is the potential for abuse, that if you're creating these images, it's the only thing that you'll do. That said, I also think when you look at how connected we are with all of these social platforms, another challenge we face, especially as brands, when we're kind of monolithic logos that are hanging out there online, we're also farther away from people than ever before. So it's an amazing opportunity to create some closeness and to really demonstrate brand humanity. Great example of this was Oreo's Daily Twist campaign, where they took a day over the course of the summer and they picked Book Lovers Days, Balance Beam Finals, 110 years of air conditioning, where they've got a little air-conditioned Oreo cooling that glass of water, or my favorite one, the bottom middle there, the Mars rover landing on the red Oreo. And Oreo kicking this up a notch at the Super Bowl, where they led us to this other trend. You hear people talking about real-time marketing, where they saw the content opportunity of the infamous blackout and produced that social image seen around the world. The fun little tag of you can still dunk in the dark. And all of us, it brought a smile. I see smiles when I mention this. When I show it again, we've all probably seen this by now. I mean, everyone holds it up as a big case study, but it's one that still brings a smile to our faces. And for those that say you can't do a whole lot with images, I would look to Instagram, where you're governed only by images, and point out just a few of the things you can do. Take a look at a brand like National Geographic, been around forever, and has shown us all sorts of interesting locations throughout the world. They can do the same thing, build that same brand via the photos that they share on Instagram. The 1888 Hotel in Sydney has a lot of fun by hosting Instagram photo walks for guests. So they promote their offline events. The Content Marketing Institute educates with individual data points that they share via Instagram. Ben & Jerry's positioning of social responsibility. They come up with all sorts of great messages they can convey. Launching products. Leinenkugel's has this sample, not for resale. It's something that they're experimenting on that makes me even more excited to learn what exactly that is. And you see Chobani, Greek yogurt, encouraging further use beyond just having a yogurt every day. Kind of a tried and true sales strategy of selling more yogurt would be reminding people of what else they could do with that yogurt. So they're encouraging further use of the product as well. And for those that look at these examples and say, okay, that's Ben & Jerry's. Now that's Greek yogurt, that's beer, that's really fun stuff. You all know it's kind of the sad trombone. That's nice, but we can't do that here. There's some great unexpected brands that are getting visual. General Electric does great things to showcase their innovation. Maersk Line, Maersk, the shipping containers that we see going by on the rail. They have a beautiful Instagram feed and Pinterest boards showing their fleet, showing their containers throughout the world. And also an Iowa company, Han, producing high design office furniture, is having a lot of fun with their Instagram feed as well. So in looking at what this means, kind of the next question this makes us all think of is, okay, so what's next? What do we need to keep an eye on when it comes to all of these visuals? And that's where, not to be like the ad man and the picture is worth 1,000 words, but I'd like to quote Yoda by misquoting him and say that begun the video wars have because so many brands are having more and more fun with video. You look at USA Today having fun with Vine, Trident doing fun things, celebrating Fridays a little bit with their actual product. Lowe's does a great job not by taking quick 6-second videos of all of their sales racks, but they've developed an entire 6-second strategy around all of this that is their Fixin' 6 videos. And a dummy like me that might see a stripped out screw in the wall and think, okay, well, it's done. I'm never getting it out. I'll have to spackle over it. These quick videos show you quick home improvement ideas. That one is pretty handy. It works. And also using the rake head to have a little bit of fun with organizing our tools as well. But again, I call these the video wars because, of course, we don't only have Vine in the mix. We've got Instagram as well. Obvious differences between the two, 6-second Vines, 15-second Instagram videos. Vine having Twitter's 500 million users behind them. Instagram having Facebook's billion-plus users back there. And last summer, we saw for the first time, I guess now I have to say summer before last. It's sad. But we saw, summer before last, we saw Vines overtake Instagram as being the most shared pieces online. 3 weeks later, Instagram launches their own video and overtakes Vine once again. And as this data from Simply Measured shows us, it did somewhat stunt brands that were adopting Vine. Many opting that already had Instagram accounts that were already doing things there, staying with Instagram so they didn't have to mind another social network. That said, I also don't think it's an either-or type of situation. I think you have to figure out what makes the most sense for your brand, because you look at those, the Lowe's Fixin' 6, and I think that that is a much better fit for a 6-second video than it would be to use up 15. That's more than twice as much time. So keeping track of video. It's also important to keep an eye on which new social networks are emerging. And I like to use this opportunity to say thank you, Snapchat, for being the first social network to date that makes me feel like the confused old man in Nebraska. I was mashing the keypad, making the images that people would send me go away. I didn't get it. I can't make it work. Wasn't pretty. But you look at that, and you compare it to that stat I referenced quickly earlier, when you have nearly half of teens that have adopted this network in the course of a year. And you have to imagine, and why it's important to look at what's next, that's because these teens that are these rapid users of all of these social networks are going to continue to age up and bring these social networks up with them, just like those students that were part of the first, the Facebook, as well. So we look at brands working to adapt with very visually focused Snapchat strategies. You see Taco Bell announcing new products for fans only. You see Acura reclaim the concept of a sneak peek using the defining feature of Snapchat, which is that this is gone after just a few seconds. And they use it to show you a literal sneak peek of a new vehicle. And of course, you see the HBO series Girls have a little bit of fun with emojis in support of the new season as well. So some Snapchat reminders. It's important to remember that it's not about the art, that it's more about access and authenticity, that it's a great opportunity to go behind the scenes and to show your fans exclusive content. Now, it's also important to note that more than being a little one-off on its own, it's important to remember that this is part of something bigger. When we look at that Acura example, they showed that sneak peek to those that followed them on Snapchat, used that as a driver to get people to follow them on Snapchat, and then it went away. And then after those people had their exclusive access for a period, they then posted it to Vine, where it could stay even longer, be shared socially, and then finally posted something to YouTube to gain search engine benefits for it as well. So again, not just a one-off. So we've talked about the trends of playing with video, of time when it comes to Snapchat and that exclusivity. It's also important to look at the money side of social media as well, as we see the paid side of social media evolving rapidly. Now, it's manifesting itself across several different social networks. You take a look at Facebook, which it was probably a little less than a year ago that it was made public that all of our reach, which we used to think was sucky on Facebook with EdgeRank at around 16%, drop even further with that last newsfeed update to the point where we start to have to really reverse engineering a pay-to-play social platform. And an image that I'm going to show you that's worth getting the smelling salts out for is this line graph here. Shows us our organic reach over last fall, winter, dropping. And then around that same time, these bars representing Facebook Inc.'s stock price. So I think when you see a picture like this, we're grumbling as marketers, but it's working out quite nicely for them. So I have to think, even as they're tweaking things, and even though some of us may be seeing more organic reach than we were before, it's hard to say that at least some paid component won't be a very big part of what's happening on social media more and more. And even looking at Instagram, owned by Facebook, where we're starting to see more and more sponsored posts cropping up. But one thing, to kind of bring it back to the visual, I still like the idea of sponsored content on Instagram because it's still, if it's targeted appropriately, it's still very good, very engaging, very visual content. And even in looking at the paid exposure, and speaking of the money and that trend to watch on social media and Instagram itself, it's worth looking at what Nordstrom is doing with social commerce through Instagram, through a site called Like to Buy, where people can set up accounts, and when Nordstrom shares a product via Instagram, they can actually like that to then buy that product as well. So looking for more social commerce coming through all of that as well. So as we take a look at what all this means, what's coming next, I think it's also important to take a step back and consider what we need to do to prepare our brands as well. And it's interesting because I started off saying, when we say visual, what do we mean? Do we just mean pretty logo stuff? And to a degree, though I kind of shot that down earlier, I would say yes, because all of these updates are visual in nature. It is more important than ever to be a fully visualized, consistent, cohesive brand. If you have brand touch points that are all over the place, if, that's our website, it kind of looks like that, and when we do this over here, and we made a Facebook cover photo, and it kind of looks like that. But if there's no cohesive brand strategy or message behind who you are, you won't be able to realize many of these opportunities that we've been talking about. So that's important. It's also important to have a plan, because one of the biggest challenges when it comes to all of these new forms of marketing is that it can be overwhelming. We go to lunches like this. We read new articles. Tweets go flying by every second. We're like, oh, yeah, got to do that. Got to do one of those. And we almost engage in what I call checklist marketing, where instead of doing what makes sense, we treat all of these social icons, all of these networks that we need to be on, as items on an arbitrary list that we need to check off. Yep, got one of those. Doing something on Instagram, something on Pinterest too. Is any of it working? I don't know. The next time the boss walks by my cubicle, I don't have to feel bad because I'm saying, we're doing something with Facebook paid ads. So the alternative is to make sure that you have a plan based on what it is you're trying to do for your business. I talked earlier about Warby Parker. And a company like them, at the end of the day, is working to sell glasses, sell frames. And they're engaging on a network like Pinterest, where it is possible to push more commerce, to drive more traffic back through to the website. You take a look at a brand like Starbucks that does have more of a broad brand type objective out there, and they are going to be using networks like Instagram as well. So think about what it is you're trying to do, and then figure out what social networks are making the most sense for getting you there. A third point would be to invest in photography. And this is another one of those things where it could be tricky, kind of hard to get your arms around. Does it mean literally like go invest in hiring a photographer, present company accepted and included, of course, but getting a better camera? What exactly does this mean? And really, investing, we're talking about in the broader sense of making sure that we're valuing these images. I mean, we look at all of the places that we have to put the images based on our brand. We have to be collecting more of them than we are today. And in many cases, engaging other people on our team to do that is critical. One of my favorite examples is New Belgium Brewing, who has the second largest following of craft brewers on Instagram. So you might think that they're just throwing people at this. And the fun fact is that they've actually got 5 people. But it's not any of those 5 people's full-time job. They have that responsibility shared across those 5 team members. And it's great because it's efficient. Instead of bogging someone down with saying, hey, you own Instagram now, it is shared across those 5 team members. And it's also effective because it keeps some variety to their brand voice as well. And not only valuing the content, but banking that visual content, that photography as well. Jim Beam, I'm making everyone thirsty now after lunch, but I think most of us have to go back to work. But Jim Beam values photography by staging content walks, by collecting their bottles, going out when the season's changing, when the leaves are falling, when it gets snowy, which I know none of us want to think about, and taking pictures of their product so that they can share those and that they can be seasonally relevant. But they're not sharing all of those at once, because they take these big, long content walks, spending like a day doing this, and they bank those so that they can share them over time. So if we're taking all of these photos, if we're valuing all of those photos, there's another skill that goes well with that that's important to remember as well. And that's the idea of teaching storytelling. And it could seem like an odd stretch to say, okay, well, we were talking about visuals. How are we talking about stories? Well, we have to remember that the best images that we're looking at, whether that is what USA Today or Ben & Jerry's or Trident's doing on Vine, or static images, the best ones are the ones that are telling stories. So we have to get better at finding ways for our images to tell stories. And a great quote about this comes from Andrew Stanton, who is a director at Pixar, directed Finding Nemo, WALL-E. But he notes that the greatest story commandment is to make me care. And I think, it's easy to take pictures of our product. It's easy to take pictures of our services. But how can we go to the next level and find ways that you can care about inanimate objects, as Pixar has made us do? So that could sound a little hard to get your arms around. Okay, this teaching storytelling thing might be a good idea, but how does one go about doing that? Well, there's a lot of different ways. There's a great storytelling TED Talk by Andrew Stanton himself that I would definitely go check out about the act of storytelling. But I also think talking to photographers, talking to videographers, having a brown bag lunch where you're bringing in someone from a production studio so that you talk about, if you're visualizing something, how can you best capture an interesting story that when your audience sees it, starts to unfold and tell itself. So beyond these stories that we're telling proactively in the future, there's another piece that we can't forget about as well. And that is making sure that we're making our past visual as well. Now, any of us or our clients that are brands that have any kind of history have an amazing content asset, a visual content asset that may be hiding back in a storage unit, in a cabinet somewhere, in a file that has old ads in it, old logos, old photos, old artwork. That's a great task to have an intern digitize those so that you can then use that to make your past visual as well. So that you can fill out your Facebook timeline with milestones. The one on the left is on Coca-Cola's Facebook timeline. That is their original patent for the chemical formula that makes Coca-Cola. That is, of course, Starbucks' first store that they opened at Pike's Place. Southwest Airlines. I talked about old ads. I mean, that's, as marketers, as agency professionals, those are the things that we all have on our computers or files or disks or somewhere that we can access and start to do fun things with, whether that's a Throwback Thursday or Southwest Airlines, who has their vintage board on Facebook. Herman Miller is another great one to check out. They have a Pinterest board called 110 Years and Counting that basically has their whole visual history. Now, there are a couple of other points that are connected, and they relate to some people that we need to make sure that we're involving in our marketing as well. One is our team. So many times, our single greatest marketing asset, marketing engine, are the other people in our business. And especially if you're talking about someone that's a small business. You add up all of the employees that you have and all of their social connections, and if they're not part of what you're doing on social media, they can never then reshare everything that you're doing as well. And yet we kind of go the opposite direction and kind of work to keep our people out of social media, which there's so many great opportunities, and especially when it comes to things visual as well, because there are great ways to take your audience backstage, to get a little bit transparent with what you do. Now, one of the best examples here, and a good example of an intangible business, Media Temple sells web hosting and domains. Those aren't a thing that you can go see somewhere. So they use their Instagram feed to take you backstage and into their office, where you see employees interacting with one another. This is their partner manager, Lily Crick, with her newborn there in the office with her. So it gets to tell a little bit about their culture, about their ethos as well. So involving your people is important, both internally and externally as well. This is where it's important to make your fans a part of your marketing as well. Because when you make your fans a part of your marketing, what are they more likely to do? Share it. Yeah, if they're a part of what's out there, they're going to be more inclined to reshare, retweet what it is that you're doing. Ben & Jerry's, if you follow on Instagram, does a great job with their Fan Photo Fridays. So much so that they elevated this into a larger program that they called Capture Euphoria. And that's where they asked people not just to embrace the wonderful, wonderful ice cream that they make, but they wanted to show them being passionate, being excited, and living life to its fullest. And they then took this to the extreme and would pick select fans and take out huge billboards, huge bus stop ads that had these visuals on them in these fans' backyards. So they really found a great way to make them feel special and feel like they were a part of their marketing as well. Airbnb, I won't play this whole video because it's quite long, asked fans that wanted to show all of the wonderful places that you can travel and go to in the world with Airbnb, they asked their fans and followers to help them tell the story of a small little paper airplane. And they threaded all of those together into about a 4-minute video that I'm starting here, and I'll play just a few moments of, but not the full thing. It's a very long video, and I'm afraid if I don't start talking over it, that we'll all become entranced by watching the paper airplane. So we'll definitely tweet out the full video, but it's very fun, very cool to watch. It goes through all sorts of different things, but seeing everyone come together to make something bigger, they told a much bigger story than any singular thing that they could have done on Vine or any other social network. So, to close, we look at the big picture of all of this. And as Google is fond of reminding us, we're now searching out twice as much content as we were before to help us make decisions. Whether that's buying something, shopping things against one another, we need twice as much content. We're looking for, as a society, twice as much content. So all of us marketers have heard the cry, gotten on the content bandwagon, and are off to the races, producing tons and tons of content. The other side of that is presented in this graph from Mark Schaefer, based on some research that he's done. This blue line here is all of this great content that all of us marketers are creating. There are so many great blog posts. There are so many great videos, so many great all of the things. And we're going to hit a point very soon, that being his green line, that overlaps that, when we are making more content than there are eyeballs, than there are users to watch all of this content, to read all of this content. I'm sure that all of us feel this. It's what Mark calls content shock. Because there's so much of it, we can't get to it. So then as marketers, we're thinking, we're working on that big blog thing. What does this mean for that? And it means that we can't get out of the content business. Because the fact of the matter is, as the Google data shows us, our audience is hungry. And if we don't put out snacks, they're going to find things elsewhere. So it is important to do that, but it's important to connect the dots with how we're creating that content. It's important to remember everything that we've talked about with getting visual, and it's important to remember that 44% are more likely to engage in content that has visuals, that is visually engaging, that has photos, videos, and more. So making that a part of what you're sharing. And finding a way to build that in to who you are. I talked earlier about the 1888 Hotel in Sydney, which is has the tagline of the world's first Instagram hotel. And more than just a catchy phrase, they really walk that talk. They give a free night's stay to anyone with over 10,000 followers on Instagram. They do Instagram photo walks around Sydney. They have a gilded frame hanging in their lobby for people to take selfies with. They have digital frames throughout the hotel that aggregate the photos shared using hashtags from the area of people sharing their trips. So in looking at this, you'd say, wow, that's a great visual marketing strategy. But I would correct you and say it's actually a great visual brand strategy. Because it's very hard to see where the marketing stops and the brand begins and vice versa. So in leaving you, I would ask you to think not just how you could create a bunch of visuals that go with your marketing, but instead how you could work to build a more visual brand. And as I close, I want to open things up for questions. But in speaking of building better brands, we talked a little bit earlier about doing a giveaway, and I know that we have that as well, a come back to the questions because I want to get to the exciting giveaway-focused stuff as well. In a couple of weeks, actually 2 weeks from tomorrow, we're putting on a conference in the Iowa City area, the Social Brand Forum, where we bring in industry experts like Ann Handley with Marketing Props, John Jantz of Duct Tape Marketing, Chris Brogan, Jason Falls, Matt Ridings, and more for 12 speakers, 2 days, action-packed digital marketing learning. But because you're AMA Iowa members, if you use promo code AMA Iowa, you can save on your registration. But we also have a registration to give away using a mechanism that Sarah knows that I don't. It's this mechanism right here. It's a highly technical digital marketing trend, the very relevant fishbowl. Oh, oh, oh! All right, yeah, there better not be 2 of them in there. We get everybody? Oh! See, I could have worked the whole room. That would have just been strange for everyone, though. Everyone in? Ah. Nice. All right. It has been sealed. That was the feedback from the sealing of the Anderson Erickson, Kim Peter. Kim? Now I will send you info about registering. Awesome. But yes, that code gets anyone else in for savings there as well. But I kind of smush that in before questions about all of that visual stuff. So what questions can I answer there? The like to buy? Yeah, because like to buy is actually, it's a feature that, yeah, and like to buy is its own entity. Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good point, too, because I think that the answer of, oh, we need so much content is to, like, turn the content engines up to 11 and just make tons of it and just blast it all out there, as opposed to making the best content, even if it's not the most, and then having an integrated plan for getting some eyeballs in front of that, both in terms of what you do organically, but also the paid component, too. Other questions? Everybody ready to go have a drink because of all of the beer examples and Jim Beam in the slides? It's 2 weeks from tomorrow, so that would be, the dates would be September 25th and 26th. It starts, yes, there on your tables, there's information. But in terms of like coming from the other part of the state, we start midday on the 25th. So theoretically, you would have time to come over that morning and be there in time for things to kick off. And then we'll finish at about 4 on Friday, so you'd be back in time for doing something fun on Friday. You can't. Come straight back. Other questions? Yes. Yes. is, but it's not undoable. You just kind of have to know the lines that you can color in a little bit more. I also think, especially when you look at regulated industries on the financial side of things, I mean, a lot of those hang-ups relate specifically to products and rates and that stuff. And it is a little bit like oversimplifying it, but if you avoid some of that specificity and work on, top of funnel brand building work, there are still interesting stories that you can tell. I mean, I think it's a harder problem to solve, but it's not an unsolvable problem. Again, I look at a company like Maersk with shipping containers, and it seems like that would be the very definition of someone that the director of marketing, we can't do anything fun, we just have containers going around railways and ships, we can't do that. I place these one ads in these trade journals, and that's what I do. I can't do that. In that voice, just like that. Yeah, oh, they're out there. Other questions? Yes?
Obviously, it's a rapidly digital space all the time. So how do you personally stay relevant and up to date?
Well, that's like our version of the content shock thing, because especially content about social media is probably the category in which there is the most. I need to dig up some statistic about that, but or make one up. But no, I mean you have to. I mean, me personally, I don't have a panacea of an answer that is wonderful. What works really well for me are like Twitter lists, and actually taking a boring half day with all of the thousands of things that I follow, and okay, I'm going to really sort these so that I have something that is industry news, and then I have industry news sources, then I have smart people in my industry, and usually between, if it's not cropping up in the news or from the smart people that usually are on top of call that list thinkers. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wanted to be the grumpy old man about Snapchat, but the first time I did that last year in one of the classes, I'm like, well, that's unavoidable. And then you take something else. I mean, I know Foursquare people kind of struggle with. Blew my mind how quickly things can come and go. And the same first time I did that, where like 90-some% were using Snapchat. None of them were using Foursquare. Not a single one. Zero. So, I mean, I think definitely the students, but then I also think, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I think we love writing the obituary for email marketing, and it continues to be one of the highest performing digital channels. But it's not as fun to write and share content about. I don't write about email as much as I should be, but I try to when talking about trend things, say that email, and then email plus social, and having that larger conversation where you're connecting, on someone's Facebook wall and in their inbox as well. So, and I think some of those old, none of this stuff is super old, but air quotes old things like email that we're quick to, in our race to what's next. I don't know why I'm pantomiming everything now, but in our race to what's next, to skip over stuff that, it's tricky because some stuff, like you see Foursquare, but they just relaunched a new version of it, so maybe that's not dead. It's hard. It's back to the keeping track of all of the things. But I think you get to something like email, the biggest story there is it actually works. And it's timeless marketing talk, but if it's actually working, we should be doubling down what we're doing there and figuring out, whereas most of us, even if we are doing good email stuff, a lot of us set it and forget it. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think it's something, I mean, the other word we kind of all nod along with is integration. But I think we used to have these big spikes of it's this now, and it's SEO, it's all links, it's all, and I think we are just still figuring out how they all play together because it's not unimportant, but you're absolutely right. You know, loading up with hashtags, you know, no way to, you know, no, I mean, take something like Instagram, yeah, very few connections, but I think it's still important to do that as well. I mean, when you're creating your own content on your own site, your own blog, should be the other meat and potatoes thing to not forget it. You can, you know, tag and link those visuals to help yourself out, at least back on your own site. But yeah, it is tricky elsewhere. Absolutely. I mean, I think there's ways around it, even on Instagram. I mean, there's been a lot of innovative stuff on Instagram. I talk about Instagram so much because, like I said, it's my favorite. But more importantly, it's also the most stripped down. It has all the problems. You can't link out of it. But you still see brands doing innovative things. IKEA, it wasn't the US IKEA, it was like the Russian IKEA, created an Instagram catalog where they connected a bunch of different images and then changed the links in the main profile for the account. So it's but yes, to your point, I mean, I think, what does it hurt? Like you said, I mean, I think that's, you may not see as much action as you used to see off of some of those links, but if there is a quick bit.ly, a short link that provides more information, yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So as social media has grown, I know marketers have been looking for creating content specific to your channel. How do you feel about visual content in that respect? Do you think they should be targeted differently depending on the industry?
Yeah, I say my tentative yeah because it's hard because it's then twice as much, so I can't reuse the thing. So I think it's always good when you can be specific, but it's talking out of both sides of my mouth. But it's also good when you can reuse stuff too. But I also think there's some real great kind of Instagram strategies, like those NPR quotes that I showed that were sound bites. I mean, that's an Instagram specific visual for them that they're, you know, that's what their Instagram strategy is. And you see other brands that, you know, have some sort of a, you know, higher design, you know, this is our, you know, quick tip or something that they're sharing there. So I would say as specific as you can be that meets your business objective and helps you tell your story, you should be. But if there's efficiencies, those help too. Other questions? Yes, sir.
For brands who may not necessarily have
Oh, you mean this guy? You know, off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but I think anytime you can connect and leverage other brands, especially if it's another brand that's in your partner network, that's part of, you know, it's a distributor, that's someone that you, that does have a following. I mean, I think any partnering like that to kind of help, it's a great way to put a toe in the water too before committing to, okay, we're going to stand up this whole Instagram presence and then it'll fizzle out because we didn't know what we were doing a month later. Other questions? be up here and around, so feel free to stop by afterwards, and love to talk to you. Thank you.